Will the next Westminster government look at immigration policy to reflect the needs of Scotland's labour market?
Thank you. Immigration, an issue in this general election, a hot issue. Record net migration to the UK last year, extra 685,000 people. But Scotland faces a population problem. We're going to peak population 2028, and it falls after that. Megan Gallagher, the Conservatives have announced today as part of the general election campaign a visa cap. How's that going to help Scotland's labour shortages?
So I think we need to look at immigration in a pragmatic way. We have got record levels, as you have rightly pointed out, but the issue is that we are not having immigration here in Scotland. So we do have people coming over to the United Kingdom, but they're then not coming to Scotland. And the question that I have is, why are they not coming to Scotland? And I think that it's going back to what we've discussed thus far. It's because we don't have the right infrastructure, transport networks. We have, really high NHS waiting lists. We don't have, a great school standard at present.
Do you think that's feeding into the decisions that people make when they move to the UK?
I do think it is feeding into the decisions that people make, because we do need to ask the question, why are people not coming to Scotland? And I think that's when devolution really comes into play. It's about the SNP not focusing on priorities that are important here, but also making Scotland a really attractive place for people to come, live, work, but also stay.
Alan
That's
Smith.
the fundamental problem.
Yeah, Scotland does have a problem with immigration. We don't have enough. We need more people in Scotland, not fewer. And Megan talks about the Tories' policy, which is just flatly incredible, and I have to say morally reprehensible to me. I think some of the most vulnerable people in the world are being used as playthings by an administration that is dreadful.
Alan, answer her point. Why aren't people coming here?
Well, we proposed a post-work study visa for students that came to Scotland to work in Scotland thereafter. The Tories didn't let it happen, because immigration policy is reserved to Westminster at the moment, which is why I want to see Scotland have power over immigration, because there's a cross-party consensus across most of the parties that we need more people, not fewer. We've got chronic labour shortages across rural Scotland. We've got skills shortages across all of Scotland. And if you want to get particular things like joinery or work done, as the gentleman said earlier, you're waiting a long time because we don't have enough people to do it.
So again,
we need
why
more
aren't
people.
those workers coming to Scotland?
Well, that's where I would agree with some of what Megan was saying in terms of the access to housing, access to skills. We need to pay people more money, which is why we need to stop austerity and get more money into the whole of the system so that we stop dealing with the consequences of austerity and actually deal with the causes. Now, getting back into the EU will put rocket boosters on all of our businesses. Getting back into the EU will give us freedom of movement in and out for our young people to go and experience the EU, for EU nationals to come here and make Scotland their home. That's a fantastic boost that would be great for us as a society and as an economy. Scotland's tragedy for 200 years was that we exported our people. And it warms my heart that so many people have chosen to make Scotland their home. And if you're here, you're one of us. Scotland needs more people, not fewer. And it grieves me that both the Westminster parties have adopted this anti-immigration agenda, which is so dangerous. And I don't want to see Scotland's immigration policy set by Nigel Farage or fear of Nigel Farage. And that's what we're seeing from both the Westminster parties.
Let me hear from some people in the audience. Lady in the blue top.
That people are choosing not to come to Scotland, that's not the case. I think it's, as you said, historically we always had people coming here, especially as part of the seasonal workforce. The minute we were taken out of the EU, we could no longer rely on those people to come to Scotland. We couldn't get them working in our NHS, we couldn't get them working in our hospitality because it's too hard for them to come here. It's not that they don't want to come here. They do want to come here, they just can't.
Thank you. And gentleman with the beard and the glasses towards the back. Yes.
Rishi Sunak has in fact actually whipped up fear by concentrating on the rubber boats and the immigration across the Channel. In reality, the whatever it is, 40,000 that have come in that way, in fact, is a small fraction of the total net migration, which is running at somewhere around about 600,000. So, in fact, we've got this problem, in fact, of people, in fact, now unable to come as a function of the limits put on the number of visas, which, in fact, we're going to actually allow in, if, in fact, of course, the Conservatives get their way.
Thank you. Michael Shanks, listening to this, should a forthcoming, if it happens, Labour government give powers over immigration to Scotland, to Holyrood?
Well, what we've said is if we have the privilege of forming a government, we want to look at an immigration system that works for all parts of the United Kingdom. That's not just Scotland, it's actually regions within England as well that have different immigration needs. We don't think devolving the power is the right approach, because what we end up having is in one system where we don't have internal borders. You actually do need some sense of a UK-wide system. Otherwise, what we'd end up having to do is have borders every time you cross from one country to another, which none of us want to see.
But you could have
there are
identity
ways
cards,
to do.
you could have some system of...
What we've said is, and in the past, indeed, the Labour and Liberal Democrat coalition in Scotland had a fresh talent scheme a while back, which was an idea of saying once you'd got a qualification in Scotland, you could stay on in Scotland longer, because we knew we wanted to keep people in Scotland. So there are approaches we're very happy to look at, and suggestions that we're keen to take a look at about where we spread this issue so the immigration system works for everyone in the UK. There are particular economic issues in Scotland, but I think we can't detach the issues that we've just been talking around housing in particular, around pay, for why people are not doing those jobs in Scotland itself. For example, the number of engineering visas that have been issued in the past year has doubled, and the number of engineering apprenticeships has halved. Now, that's a very clear thing, that what we should be doing is encouraging people and funding these apprenticeships in the UK so that young people have those opportunities, and not just looking at immigration as a means to fill those. Now, where I really disagree with Alan is Alan and I have been in the same voting lobby for quite a lot of this year on the Tories' Rwanda bill. The idea that we're in the same place on immigration as the Conservatives is just not true.
Well,
the Rwanda bill, as the gentleman said at the back, it will fix a tiny part of this issue.
Nigel Farage
it won't
has
resolve
said
the issue
that
at all.
he's suggesting that we should have net zero immigration, because that would encourage people here to get back into work, economically inactive people here.
I'm not going to give any credit to...
That's another problem about us not speaking about Brexit. If we were having a really mature, open debate about how damaging Brexit has been, Nigel Farage would have been dragged over the coals, every one of his lies revealed, and he wouldn't even exist politically now. It's because we have failed to raise Brexit that we've allowed these charlatans to continue to have some kind of veracity and existence.
But we do have
scene.
record numbers of net migration to the UK after Brexit, post-Brexit.
I think, look, you've got to view migration as a river of humanity, which you've got to look at, and there's so much good in it, and there's a lot that you've got to be very disciplined about and make sure that it doesn't bring harm to this country. It needs to be approached, I think, in a really strong way that values the fact that, you know, that to a large extent, many migrants who come here come from cultures which have a great respect for age, and there's a tremendous advantages that can be brought to us through the caring system. We're an aging population. To a large extent, many migrants are quite young. There's youth there, there's vigor, there's ambition. There is so much good that we've got to go for. But people like Farage, he really should have been revealed a very long time ago to be a very, I think, quite a fraudulent populist and an extremely good actor. But beyond that...
Well, now standing to become an MP, Willie Rennie.
So I find the anti-immigration debate both morally reprehensible, but also economically illiterate.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at some of the people that are coming across in the boats are the most vulnerable people in the world. They've taken their families from their homes, war-torn homes, across in the hands of gangs, on rubber boats, where many of them lose their lives.
So what controls should there be?
Let me just finish this. This is really important that we understand these are humans.
Well, we know that.
The debate too often dehumanizes these people. We need to understand it could be my son, it could be your son, it could be your daughter that could be going across the seas, and we treat them like numbers. These are people that deserve respect. That's why we need to discuss these people.
Yeah.
But there's also something inspirational about these people. That these people are incredibly talented. They've got great ingenuity. If you're going to take your family from one side of the world to the other, there's a bit of go about you, isn't there? These are the people we should be wanting to have in our country.
So why are they not coming to Scotland at the moment? That's Megan Gallagher's point.
Yeah, I know, but it's very small beer, isn't it? I mean, for goodness sake, we need to look at the big picture. Of course the SNP are terrible. Of course they've got terrible public services. Of course that's the reason. But the big picture here is how do we get the right people into our country to drive our economy? Because, right, say for instance, the students we can get in our universities, they are some of the best in the world. They can drive the ingenuity of our universities. The people who pick berries on the fruit farms, they can come from all over the world to do that. It's some of the best produce, food and drink produce that we've got in this country. These people are a great talent, economically beneficial, but morally such a powerful case. So let's make the case, the positive case for immigration, and let's get rid of the fearmongering.
Let me just wrap this up with the lady with the glasses there. Yes.
I was born in France. I grew up in France. I came to the UK for university, and no real other reason. I have stayed, I have moved to Scotland, and I run a business here with my partner which brings people into town and supports the local economy. I'm lucky. My parents are English, and that means I'm allowed to do it. Others are not.
Thank you.